Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider presented by FanDuel. Matthew Collar here as always, and with me Mike Schopp, WGR 550 in Buffalo, where everything is totally fine, and ADP chasing as well, and whatever else you have going on fantasy-wise. Mike, happy Thanksgiving to you. How are you?
Happy Thanksgiving. I've got plenty going on fantasy-wise. I'd like to have some more going on fantasy-wise, but our high stakes regular seasons end in week 12, and a gentleman by the name of Richard Pearsall ended up being the deal breaker on a couple of high stakes teams. I mean, he sat there all year. What happened to Brandon Ayuk, by the way? But Pearsall, like, you're kind of waiting, and he's hurt. He's hurt again, but then he's back, and then he's running routes, but they don't throw it to him. And unfortunately for me, a couple of big ones came down to him on Monday night. And two catches, 6 yards, maybe 9. It makes no difference.
I would have put everything into the Ricky Pearsall bucket before the season, just considering where they were and who they lost and everything else. And he was a second-round draft pick, but such is life, especially in a Kyle Shanahan system where they just throw the running back every play. And if you have Christian McCaffrey in a PPR league, boy, you're getting all the PPRs from him. But that
he was a first-round pick. I mean, that's the year where the Bills traded out and Kansas City took Worthy, and then Pearsall went and the Bills traded out and Carolina took Leggett, and the Bills had all day Friday and just make one more move. You got Ladd McConkey, you got 5 other guys here. Coleman is one of them. Just make one more move. You have the whole day to negotiate, and they didn't do it. I feel like maybe they felt it was enough already with the 2 trades, but that's not optimal.
Well, they got Brandon Cooks now, so
yes,
everything is fine. Is the GM going to call back into Jeremy and Joe and be like, "Hey guys, whoops." Whoops, yeah. Or when Brandon Cooks catches the game-winning touchdown in the AFC Championship on a deep shot from Josh Allen, is he going to be like, I had this planned all along to do it just exactly this way? Not that I, in my seat with the team that I cover, can make fun of any franchise's missteps in last offseason, because the Minnesota Vikings made just about the biggest one in the entire National Football League.
And they get that in their face this Sunday if Darnold, plays well. The thing that, a lot of things are interesting and maybe even sort of weird about what Bills GM Brandon Beane did the morning after the draft, or the Monday morning, calling into WGR, is within minutes of that, rant, there was a report that they had Elijah Moore in for a tryout. Like the very the very crux of the debate. They're still out there fishing. And, at the same time, it's perfectly reasonable, I think, to scrutinize what they haven't done, or what, they haven't invested in wide receiver. But you also need to give them some credit for realizing it. Like I thought at the trade deadline, there's no way, with where Beane had planted his flag, that he was going to try to, buy big on a receiver. And then it came out shortly thereafter that they wanted Jalen Waddle. I don't think, by the way, GMs sometimes realize what message fans are getting when they hear about the trades they couldn't make. Okay, well, you tried to make a deal. You want credit for that? Because that's probably where the leak came from, is the Bills wanting their legions to know that they tried for Jalen Waddle. But what's the difference when you don't make the trade? So they're still scraping at it. They tried McCole Hardman. He got hurt right away. Now it's Brandon Cooks. Feels a lot like Amari Cooper. Cooks at 32. He's been around. They both have very similar. They both have been on several teams. So I don't know. Their playoff odds are still really good.
This was a Minnesota Twins thing for a very long time. But the Twins were in on this guy, and they made an offer, and it was like, okay, that's congratulations. You are a front office. Do we really think the Miami Dolphins were going to trade Jalen Waddle to the Buffalo Bills? I don't know that would make. Maybe they are a crazy team, but that doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. Yeah, I guess so. But I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense to help your division rival. Usually you try to send them the farthest away possible. But anyway, I think that just in general with the offense of the Buffalo Bills, that game against the Texans is sort of that turning point of, okay, this is really in a bad spot, because that game right there, an island game, everybody's watching, it looks like a playoff game, and the Texans certainly treated it like that. And you just couldn't stop any of the pressure, didn't have answers down the field. And there's only so many times Josh Allen can run, or, I mean, gosh, even like there's only so many times you could throw a swing pass and have it turn out to be a 50-yard play, or a hook and ladder or whatever, or hook and lateral, depending on how you like to say it. But I mean, that even their best plays were kind of bogus in that game. It really did look like a team that's going to struggle to win in the playoffs without an answer at wide receiver.
Yeah, they looked like they were playing a man short almost because of how much pressure Allen was under. My daughter plays hockey, good hockey. She's 14, and her teams have been fine, like through the years. They've maybe they're just sort of average or above average. But when you play a team that's just like all over it, it looks like you're playing shorthanded, because there's never any space. There's never any sort of easy button stuff, right? It's all just sort of, you're always under duress. And that's exactly what the Bills looked like in that Houston game. It's what they looked like in Atlanta. It's what they looked like in Miami. These are not really good teams I'm mentioning, and they're losing to them on the road, and that does not bode well. It's just, of course, as you know, a very interesting moment here in the AFC, where if you look at Super Bowl odds, the Chiefs and the Bills are still like 1-2 or 1-3, despite the fact that they're 3 or 5 games back, and it's already Thanksgiving. Like, it's what do we think will happen? Denver and New England still have schedule advantages. The Chiefs at least get to play Denver again, but they've also got to deal with Houston, and I think Houston's really annoying to play against with their defense. But in that game, the Bills had in Houston, I believe it was that they completed 12 passes to wide receivers, and 8 were to Khalil Shakir. So they got off the plane and like, well, we completed 4 passes to the rest of our lengthy wide receiver room, and we got to keep hammering at that. So that's enter Brandon Cooks, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, it gets to the point where, and I feel this way because you and I are professional talkers, and when you've run down the same conversation road time and time and time again, it's like, what is left to say about this?
I know.
And I felt that way coming out of Green Bay with JJ McCarthy, where what more can we say about how this is going? It's going as bad as it's ever gone for any young quarterback, and they should have brought Sam Darnold back, and et cetera, et cetera. And it feels the same way for us. We've been doing this for a couple of years with this fantasy show, and we've been saying, the Bills not making any real effort to get a top wide receiver, or even a reasonably good wide receiver to throw to, is eventually going to bite them. And it certainly did last year at times. And it definitely has so far this year, because I think last year the league was separated by a lot more. In terms of like there were no mediocre teams to lose to, like the Houston Texans. It just felt like it was either 5 or 6 good teams and everyone else was horrible. I don't think it's that way this year. Schedules change. And then, every time they go on the road, it feels like they just have no offense to work with whatsoever. So I don't know what you're supposed to, unless it was that random Carolina game, but I don't know what you're supposed to do with it now, other than to just say, it's going to be what it's going to be, and Josh Allen is going to have to be a heroic, and maybe you have to switch to, not that they already kind of haven't, but like maybe you have to switch to just running the football all the time. I mean, that's really the only way to do it.
That's where they've had their most success, except when it's, emergency time, like in the opener against Baltimore, where they just had no choice. Baltimore switched defenses weirdly and ended up blowing that game. But yeah, that's been the philosophy here for 2 years now, is to run it. And they have been very successful, right? We've got to recognize that. I think as redundant and boring or repetitive as the conversation is, like you said, on this subject, it always was going to come down to those few plays in the playoffs. And apart from sort of a worst case scenario where they don't make it now, because now that's in play, then it still will. And if you end up going to New England or Indianapolis, needing to win those games to make your Super Bowl finally, then okay. I mean, I don't think that's not impossible to overcome. We'll see about the Ravens, who play Thanksgiving night. They still don't look good, right? I mean, Jackson doesn't run. He's hurt all over his body. And okay, well, the division is crappy and you're the favorite, but they still don't look actually good. So I don't know, like even going to Baltimore in the first round, the Bills have won there. They've beaten them in the playoffs twice with these quarterbacks. Okay, like it's just, I don't want to get, this is how I feel, and this is especially, Matthew, how I sound, how I want to sound, how I want to be heard is I don't want to fall for, all right, this is over. Mm-hmm. Because when you do that, you can look like a donkey. And I don't want to look like a donkey. I just want to get through the season and see, what it is in the end. I don't think it's over. It's just not that kind of league. It's not that kind of sport. And if you have Allen, you're live in every game. I mean, that's obvious. So here's what I wanted to ask you or bring up to you about the Vikings, if I may. So you slipped in, right? They should have kept Darnold. What percentage of any, fans, analysts would have said that before they made the decision? What was it? 5%? What percentage of people thought at the time they should have done that? The trap is when you draft McCarthy so early, you're pot committed. And even if people said, well, it's too early, well, you need a quarterback and, we've got the right coach, and you sort of go round and round, you get to a point where they almost had no decision because of what they had invested in McCarthy. It reminds me of, if you give me one more minute here, Joe Posnanski, who I think is a really smart, good writer, baseball books, also a football book. And he had a chapter in the Football 100 on Tom Osborne and his decision to go for 2 in the Orange Bowl.
Yep.
I think it was like the same weekend. No, it was a different weekend. Anyway, in the 80s for Nebraska. And, they lost. If they kick the point, they have to make it. People don't ever say that about, kicking, but they have to make it. Still, chip shot, extra point, tie, national champions, and your program and your team has that forever. But everybody respected that he didn't do that, went for the win, lost, and they don't have that honor. But the coach looks great for trying. And Posnanski raised the point in this book that people always, automatically gave him credit for that. But wasn't it the easy choice? Because even if he kicks the point and ties, he's remembered forever negatively for doing that in a win. But, he goes for it and loses, and people respect him for it. That seems like, in a way, that's the easy choice, and that might be counterintuitive. And I think that's what the Vikings had. And this is not that rare. But once they make the draft pick, it almost doesn't matter how Darnold plays. I mean, evidently, because he had a great season, and they get those 2 games at the end that are gross. And now it's easy because you have that sort of escape hatch, and your decision is kind of made for you. So I've talked for long enough.
No, I think you're completely right that going with J.J. McCarthy was the wildly popular idea. There was a certain local podcaster who was really ripped to shreds in many comment sections for suggesting that you don't actually know what J.J. McCarthy is going to be. And I thought it was a better idea. I wrote about it. I talked about it to franchise tag Sam Darnold. And I don't want to be like, I told you so, guy. This is just like, this is what I said, was to franchise tag Sam Darnold, because then you sort of have your cake and eat it too. You're competing in 2025 with Sam Darnold, but also you're learning about JJ McCarthy and you're developing him. And then the following season, you would be able to, in 2026, you'd be able to turn it over to McCarthy if you like what you saw. But if you didn't like what you saw, then you could bail, or you could sign McCarthy or sign Darnold to a long-term contract extension. And the same went for the worst case scenario, where if Darnold turns back into a pumpkin, sees ghosts, melts down, whatever people love to say about Sam Darnold, no matter how good the guy plays and how much he wins, every single bad game is like, ghosts. He leads the league in quarterback rating, but sure, like despite 4 interceptions, that's how good he's been in a single game. For me, it was all about the evidence of the past, which was quarterbacks just don't play that well and then turn out to be bad. It just doesn't happen. To have seasons like that, there are no quarterbacks ever who have won more than 11 games, thrown for 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns, and then turned out suddenly to not remember how to play football.
And McCarthy, there's no quarterback like him that's ever succeeded where he missed an entire season. So, wow.
Well, and to add to that, there are comparable quarterbacks to McCarthy for the small sample size of actually playing in college with a lot of winning success. And that would be like Mark Sanchez. The closest that I could find to J.J. McCarthy statistically for what his actual numbers looked like and for the few number of passes, the big level college quarterback who was mostly, if you go back and look at the reports from Sanchez, it's not, oh, this guy has the best arm or best touch on the football of all time. It's all like he knows ball, he's a leader, he cares about, the game and so forth. Like
he's a winner.
There are just, and when we talk about like 1 year guys, which is what he really was, I mean, that's like a Mitch Trubisky. So for me, I wasn't like, oh, don't draft McCarthy, because I think he's got a ton of talent and I think he cares a lot about the game. But the lack of experience, it's not Bo Nix, it's not Michael Penix, it's not someone you could look at 4,000 passes for. So I was on the side of, hey, if they keep him, I think that's a good idea. But where the complicating factor is a little bit of like, who am I to tell Kevin O'Connell what to do with his quarterback? That was the challenge that I always ran into, which is if I am from my seat saying like, Kevin, you shouldn't believe in yourself and your own evaluation ability. But I would also say that like Howie Roseman drafted Jalen Reagor. Like no one's perfect. No one is perfect when it comes to evaluation in this game. And they had a chance, but I think what they got lost in was the Rams game where it wasn't really Sam Darnold's fault, but they didn't have a line. They couldn't pressure. They couldn't run the football, and they got caught up in the things that they couldn't do around Sam Darnold and thought, let's spend all the money to fix those things, and lost the fact that if your quarterback doesn't play well and you rank 31st in team quarterback rating, you will lose almost every game. And that's where they ended up being. But I don't think there was any world where they could have seen it being this bad. I think they were realistic about like, hey, he's probably not going to come in and be a megastar. But here's where the hubris came from, was they believed if we just set up everything perfect for him on a silver platter, then he'll have to make a couple plays a game. And as long as he does that, we're going to win a lot of football games. But what they didn't realize is that this game is super, super hard. And there's only so many people who can actually throw the football the way that Sam Darnold does. I think that was what they overlooked. It's like, you can't just do that. You can't just set it up for somebody if they're not capable of actually making those throws.
Makes sense. They're in the wrong division. They're not going to get away with it. I mean, that's one thing to be in a division where you might have 3 other playoff teams too, but no excuse. Like McCarthy seems from the outside here to be like the problem, all caps.
Yeah.
Because everybody loved their roster, right? I mean, that was a team that was supposed to be good. Just the quarterback, keep it on the road. And to lose Jefferson seems like you've really done something, because we also had, to everything you said, of course, the proof, it seemed, that it didn't really matter who his quarterback was. He was still going to produce. And in fantasy, I mean, every year is interesting. There have been some busts, but you mentioned McCaffrey already, and Jahmyr Gibbs is going for like literally 60 points in a game. Those picks right around where Jefferson was, 4, 5, 6 in the first round, 3, 4, 5, 6, not 6, 7. I wouldn't do that to you, but they have, been hits. And even Lamb, who missed time and has Pickens kind of taking over there, is still productive. And of course, that's not the whole list. Barkley's been a bust. But otherwise, like, what do you do with Jefferson now? I mean, who are we picking earlier next year in fantasy football if we're drafting now. And don't laugh, because we almost are drafting now. Like, it's almost about to start.
Yeah.
Are we picking Jefferson or JSN?
JSN, easily.
I think so too.
Because Kirk Cousins is going to be thrown to Jefferson.
All right.
I'm saying it. I'm saying it now because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Kirk Cousins is going to be the quarterback of this team next year. Wow. Well, I guess that would be good for Jefferson because he's put up a lot of numbers with Kirk in the past. So, but JSN is moving toward number 1 overall pick type of level. And,
yes.
Jamar Chase becomes hard here because Burrow can't stay healthy. And at some point, like, this is connected to the way that he plays football. And I respect the heck out of the fact that he's coming back. I know people don't come back. What? You're a franchise quarterback and you sign that contract? Yeah, come back. Are you serious? People pay for these games. Sometimes I just like the common sense of the, like, I don't know. It's like, are you serious? You get paid that much, you go play football. But the fact that you might end up with, who knows who throwing Jamar Chase the football again is kind of concerning there. Who knows if Stafford comes back after they win the Super Bowl? He probably doesn't, right? Like, I think the Rams are winning the Super Bowl. I think they're the best team in the league by far.
Yeah, think of that fluky Eagles loss they have too, the blocked field goal.
Right.
But yeah, Stafford, I've had mixed results this year, and Stafford is a part of the problem. I haven't done better because the entire narrative around him, I think we talked about this for a minute last week, was like he's in that chamber and is he even going to play? And it's like, is his back so bad? And you don't know, right? I mean, sometimes the teams know, well, they certainly they have to know more than we do, but they might not know either, like just how that's going to land. And now you're getting an MVP season from him, which, great. But who wanted to draft? Well, I'll just speak for myself here. Draft Matthew Stafford, or why not draft Justin Fields, who can run, and he's probably not going to get benched because they've made some investment here and they've got talent around him. Nope. I mean, that got a few good weeks. We squeezed a few good weeks out of that, but it wasn't a winning bet. And Stafford, Stafford was even a much later pick than Fields. Like, he was the last 3 or 4 rounds of drafts just as a backup. Plus, if you drafted, say, Jaden Daniels, you wouldn't want to, quote, waste a pick on a backup quarterback because you had Jaden Daniels. And when are you ever going to start anybody but him? That's what makes it fun, I guess, but it also makes me crazy.
That was how similar to how I won a league last year, one of my very small underdog fantasy leagues. Sorry, FanDuel. But one of them that I won was because I drafted Sam Darnold with the last pick, and I think I had like Anthony Richardson as my top quarterback, and then there you go. So it is unpredictable. But in terms of like the top wide receiving options, I mean, even Drake London becomes a question here because of Michael Penix and whether he's going to be back to start next season. And the irony of the fact that they might not be able to get rid of Kirk because they might need him to start next year. He does throw to the number 1 wide receiver. But I just don't know what to make. There's a lot of questions here with this. And even with someone like George Pickens, I don't know what it is about George Pickens, but he's always rubbing people the wrong way. And you wonder like how long this goes. Like if it's not going perfectly into next year, is this kind of the perfect storm because their defense is horrible and they just have to throw all the time? And he's getting shots down the field. Is it like a 1-year thing for him, or is this going to be like, is he just an elite receiver? He's certainly an elite talent, but there's like a little Andre Rison to him where he just doesn't ever seem to be completely happy.
Good name. Yeah, I don't know. And we don't know where he's going to play. Like, does Dallas do Dallas things and just mess around, and Jerry Jones does radio hits at 85 years old or whatever he is, just are so embarrassing? Or do they sign him to a Lamb type contract or higher, because that's kind of how he's playing? So there's that question with him. Amon-Ra St. Brown deserves his name mentioned here too, because that guy, I was not really into the Lions this year with the changes to the offensive line and the coordinator leaving. But I have a couple of teams that are flying high, and he's on them because like you just get, the floor is so high for St. Brown. And now no Laporta for the rest of the season too. And Jameson Williams has been popping a little bit, but yeah, it's always so interesting. I can't wait to get started. There's like a moment of pain and anguish when your seasons die, and then like, all right, let's get back on it. If we're recording on a Wednesday, I'll mention that tonight I'll be on the Ship Chasing feed at 8:30 to talk about this a little bit, and then ADP Chasing is going once a month until the off season returns. So that'll be first Tuesday of the month, which is next week. So we'll be talking a lot about. In fact, last time on that show we did a mock first 3 rounds for next year, and it's probably already quite different now than it was then.
Oh man.
Can't wait.
There's something that I'd like to have all of you examined by a psychologist to understand why you're looking at 2026 drafts right now, but maybe that's a different form of podcast.
Well, isn't it interesting though? I think these conversations are like who will be the better player next year in the better situation. Like I mentioned, I think last week we spent a lot of time on all the quarterback movement that seems likely in the league. So that's fascinating. And when we're talking about this year, it's just it's not over yet, but it's just there, right? There's not, we can go try to pick up Devin Neal off waivers, which we really should do, as Alvin Kamara is going to miss time, it seems. Mm-hmm. But that's not as interesting as whether we'd rather have Smith and Jigba or Jamar Chase on our teams next year, even though, I mean, it's so far off.
Yeah, well, you're right. That is what also Vikings fans are into the 2026 season already as well. So you're not alone. I did promise fans that I would do a mock draft this week, so I cannot criticize. Let's get to these Thanksgiving games because there is a lot on this slate to talk about. Oh, and a Black Friday game as well. Why don't we toss that in there? So we got Packers at Lions. The Lions are a 2.5-point favorite on FanDuel. And I'm very interested in the passing prop here for Jordan Love, 228.5 yards. Jordan Love had a few good throws against the Vikings, didn't have to do much. He was handing off backwards with his right hand because his left shoulder is messed up. And Aiden Hutchinson plays for the other team. It feels like they're going to have to play for a little while with him in at quarterback. Like, hey, can you just complete third downs and then let's not do a whole lot else until you get more healed. That looked like even from the beginning of the game when it was close with the Vikings, how Jordan Love's going to play. I would go under on Jordan Love 228.5. Jared Goff though 238.5. Where would you go with that one, considering it is the Packers defense that ate him in week 1?
I would be over on Love, I think, and under on Goff. Maybe was it 2 years ago where Green Bay went there and just blew him out?
2023, yep.
2023. Like maybe that's too fresh in my mind, sort of waking up to Thanksgiving football and watching Green Bay just demolish the Lions. Like that wasn't supposed to happen. I still like Love. I don't think he's underrated, but I think he's good. And yeah, if he's not healthy, then that's a problem, but he's playing and it's a huge spot. And I just sort of like the Packers here. So if they get down, they get boat raced, maybe if Detroit just clicks on a couple big plays, they're certainly capable of that. Then your passing props are probably in good shape, unless it just completely gets away from Green Bay, which I don't really expect. So with Green Bay, you never know like where the ball is going. Jacobs is going to play. That might end up being a split with Emmanuel Wilson, who was pretty good. You were there.
Oh, he was good. Yeah.
Last week. So another wrinkle to have to think about defending the Packers. I'm disappointed that Luke Musgrave hasn't been able to do more yet. He was a second round pick, maybe. Like he and Kraft were drafted in the same draft, and Kraft was just so productive before he got hurt. I thought maybe Musgrave could fit into that role. Yeah, I'll go over on Love.
The over-under is 48.5, which seems high to me, considering how the Packers want to play football. They don't want it to come anywhere close to that. What I do think, though, is that they showed last week some vulnerability against the run, and their numbers in terms of yards per carry against the run are very good as a defense, and yet it never really feels that way. And I think that's probably because they play in a lot of low-scoring games and stuff. I don't know. They just looked to me like the Vikings could run on them all day had the Vikings not gotten behind in the game due to a special teams error. They had a whole drive where all they did was just hand off to Jordan Mason and went right down the field, and then screwed up trying to have their tight end do a QB sneak. But aside from that, as one does in the National Football League, like you can't even trust JJ McCarthy to QB sneak. Like, come on, where are we at right now? So yeah, that one will be interesting, but I think that's a low scoring type of game. Kansas City at Dallas, the over under on FanDuel 52.5. And Dallas is 3.5 point underdogs to the Kansas City Chiefs. First of all, I know overs are bad plays. I don't care. I would go over all day on this one. There will be 1,200 yards combined from these two teams on this day. I mean, not only do these teams put up huge yardage totals anyway, and both have very questionable defenses, but you don't get the type of defensive preparation that you would normally get on a week. I mean, this just screams 38-35 total shootout between these two teams. This one could be a lot of fun.
And they don't play each other.
Yeah.
So there's that element too. I mean, how many times have the Cowboys seen Mahomes? Maybe once. So 10 out of 10 excitement for this game. Like as exciting as I'm anticipating this game, looking forward to it. That should have been easier. As any game like that. This is a great late window Thanksgiving offering here, KC Dallas, and I hope it lives up to it. I kind of am getting to be an age too where I have to admit I'm thinking the refs are probably going to help this happen, right? Like they're not going to let Kansas City Dallas on Thanksgiving be 19-10. It's going to shoot out. Speaking of recent Thanksgiving games and maybe being influenced by them, the Raiders had one in Dallas 2 or 3 years ago, the Hunter Renfrow game, and just like nobody could stop anybody, and it was maybe 4 hours long, but really good. So that's what I want to see here. I would not bet against. I would not bet unders. You know, I don't have to go over because it seems so obvious. But I'm not interested in betting against this game from a strategic standpoint or just like an entertainment one.
So I haven't looked at, people love those charts that if you win, what your odds are, if you lose, what your odds are, which are a little bit questionable just because you don't know the other results, but I don't know how it's done. So anybody who puts them out there, I use them all the time. I'm not hating, but it's this one feels like it's for both teams. This has a gigantic impact. I mean, Kansas City needs to win pretty much every game, and so does Dallas. And last week, I think that Dallas felt like, and I know who they were playing, they have felt like they've come together. Like the Eagles can't put anybody away because of their offense. So they were going to leave opportunities out there on the field. But that team under Brian Schottenheimer just feels like it is getting better and not worse, like you would think a mediocre team would. And it also speaks a little bit to, hey, can we stop trying to judge coaching hires on day one? Because I think this guy's done a great job, and it was laughed at pretty much everywhere. But I think that they're more dangerous than their record would insinuate.
Me too. Defensively, not either as bad as maybe their reputation at this point, although it's not good. So, I've always been a Prescott fan. Like I have an MVP ticket for him. He's not going to win it, but he plays almost as well as any quarterback in the league, and he always does. And so, they're only 500 or whatever they are, but I'm expecting big things tomorrow.
Well, I guess this is a time in my life to be exhausted by quarterbacks who are labeled as not playing good in big games, who constantly have their team in big games. And that's been what I've been saying all week when fans, let's see if Darnold wins a championship. Like, let's see if your team gets to 6 wins. So anyway, Cincinnati and Baltimore here. You mentioned Jackson. If there's a game that he's going to get back on track, I guess it's this one. I saw him live, and you talk about just football-y excitement. I was so excited to see him play live, and then he did nothing. Like, he just did nothing special at all. It was like watching Ken Griffey Jr. if he just tried to walk every time and just stood there with that was Lamar Jackson. It's very clear he's nowhere close to healthy. His over-under for this game, 234.5. Joe Burrow, 251.5 in his return. I do think it's going to be tough for Burrow. I don't know about T. Higgins' status. I don't think that that's
Out.
Yeah, he's out. Okay, I figured he was. 251 seems a little healthy for me for Joe Burrow. 234 also seems healthy for me for Lamar Jackson, even though he's playing the most pathetic defense in the world. I think they're probably going to run. Like, I don't know what to make of Lamar right now.
Yeah, I agree on both fronts. I think that Burrow probably as good as he can be, it might not look as good as it can be immediately. And Baltimore can be a problem. These teams did play two incredible shootouts last year. So I'm not sure I need to be so confident in the unders. But yeah, I mean, Jackson, now it's a toe. Like he's the operation guy at this point where it's just knee, ankle, toe, writer's cramp, water on the knee, all the other funny bone. We could end up setting records here. But I just see Derrick Henry in this game when I think about this game tomorrow night. And for the Bengals, Chase Brown has really like the workload, the usage, the production is kind of there. That was a mid-second round pick in fantasy this year. I mean, the second round was wrought with, problems. Just Jalen Waddle, was that a second round pick? I don't know. I just know it wasn't fun to be drafting in like the middle of the second round. But Bucky Irving was somebody else right there with Chase Brown, as I recall. So Brown, things are looking up for him. I might want to play overs like on receiving or total yards on Brown.
I'm just envisioning the Cincinnati Bengals trying to tackle Derrick Henry and having it look like his high school highlights that get played on every broadcast. I looked this up, and missed tackles is a stat that kind of like hits in hockey where, it's somebody's guess in the press box, but they are like 50 missed tackles ahead of the next worst team in the entire NFL, and playing against the best tackle breaker of the last decade. Even if he's not the same guy, he is still the same size. And it feels like there will be Bengals bouncing off of him left and right. That one has the potential, I think, to be kind of an ugly game.
And that could be Jackson too, if he's in the mood.
Yeah, right.
And healthy.
Right. If he doesn't have the sniffles. So let's get to Philadelphia and the Chicago Bears on Black Friday. And just what we all wanted was a Black Friday football game. I don't know, every single day. They should spread out the schedule so it's just every single day is a football game.
If not for fantasy, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. That would mess up everything.
Fantasy, it's a nightmare. The London games, right? When you need lineup setting at 9 a.m, it's a lot, but otherwise,
so on FanDuel right now, the Philadelphia Eagles are 7-point favorites against the Chicago Bears. I am always thinking that the Eagles are going to turn a corner because they're the Eagles and they just usually do. But after last week, I mean, there was some film breakdowns that are just horrifying of like the Cowboys, who have this terrible defense, are running the routes for the wide receivers before they even make a turn. It just seems like it is so simplistic offensively, and Hurts isn't running in the same way that he has in the past. Like I just don't know what to make of that. I feel like this game stays close just because Philadelphia is so inept offensively. So I would go Bears with the +7 here, but also the level of obnoxiousness of the Bears, if they win this football game, is going to shoot through the roof, because all year people like myself have said, I just don't think that they're good. I think they've gotten away with it. They got away with it against the Vikings. But if they win this game, they can make an argument that they're not just getting away with it, that they're more for real.
Yeah. Comparisons to the Vikings team that made the playoffs with the negative point differential or whatever that was a couple of years ago.
2022. Yep.
2022. And that's been my feeling about Chicago as well. But we're agreeing this week more than last week, because I see the same thing with Philadelphia. I don't like the vibes at all. And for whatever it's worth, they have 2 years ago, they were 10-1 maybe and fell apart. So that with this coach and this quarterback and that roster, like that's happened to them. That's available to the Eagles if they just completely lose it. And I think Chicago, the coordinators here, I guess with the Bears, I'm thinking of the head coach now, but the play callers, I think it's like a tremendous mismatch. And I'd also want to be on +7. I mean, I think it'd be incredible if Chicago were to win, not in despite what you said about the team or the fans or whatever, but it'd be a massive win for them, because if you go to Philadelphia and win, you're in great shape in the standings, and you're going to have people starting to buy it this year. So I kind of like to see it. I'm not sure I want to say that on Purple Insider, but I kind of like to see what happens if Chicago pulls the upset here.
Well, they've worked hard for it over the years of drafting bust after bust. I think I became resentful to Bears Nation or whatever when they like defended Justin Fields as if he was actually good. And, thought that they were going to get a first round pick for him or what, all that sort of thing, which I guess you can't use social media to judge an entire fan base, but it seemed like that they were really convinced that Justin Fields was going to be their guy and they shouldn't draft Caleb Williams or he was going to get a first round pick. And I just thought this is so weird. But anyway, they also get a lot more attention than the Vikings and rarely win more than the Vikings, which I think a little resentment there as well. Anyway, the over-under for Caleb Williams in this game is 207.5, which I think there's a great chance for him to go over in this game. With the way Philadelphia has been, I think, quite flawed. Like their defensive line is so good, but you just can't tackle Caleb Williams. And if he gets going at all, I think he's going to have some success there. So that should be an interesting game as well. All right. Final thoughts. What are we thankful for in fantasy? How about that? It's Thanksgiving. What are you thankful for?
Well, I mean, I am thankful for this, you and me every
too.
week, and being able to, have these conversations. I love the math of it and the matrix of it so much that while it can be depressing when a team crashes out to even look at it, it's still important to try to figure out where you went wrong. And sometimes it's bad luck and sometimes it's, user error. So I think you always want to be doing that. I'm excited for getting into some of the next year stuff already. Playoff tournaments before that are really fun where you're drafting. I mean, formats vary, but you're drafting one guy per team. In some tournaments, that's a fun puzzle to try to put together. Maybe my favorite single fantasy puzzle is the playoff one because just, myriad options and strategy really does come into play. If you drafted Smith and Jigba or Jonathan Taylor this year, you're probably thankful for those guys. I'm thankful for Jahmyr Gibbs' 60 points last week in my two main event teams in the Kentucky State Championship. So a few things. But when it's Thanksgiving football, I want to bring up the name Randy Moss, especially with you, because that is one of, if that's not conservative, one of the best Thanksgiving individual performances we've ever seen back now almost 30 years ago, amazingly.
It's one
You're
of those...
old enough to remember that, right?
Oh, yeah. I was watching that day for sure. It's one of those where, when Randy Moss was drafted, I really didn't like and this is me as a kid, but the framing of Randy Moss. He's a bad guy. He's, look, I remember them criticizing, maybe this was on a radio broadcast or something, because I don't think I had ESPN to watch the broadcast, but criticizing how he had dressed at the draft. And I was like, who the heck cares about how he's dressed at the draft? Like, oh, he's got a pant leg up. Like, oh no. So I wanted him so bad to succeed, just to kind of shove it in everybody's face who had criticized him coming out. And that for me was just fantastic to see. I don't think I've ever seen anyone run faster than everyone else on a football field as much like the Bo Jackson Tecmo Bowl gap of this man is moving twice as fast as every single other person on the field as that game. And it's one of those, it's probably one of like 5 things that have ever happened in sports. When someone puts it on Twitter, like here's the highlights for Thanksgiving, I will click every time. It doesn't matter how many times I've seen it.
I know.
And right. I'll pick up on something different every single time. And one of my favorite part this last time I watched it was Pat Summerall just goes, throw it as far as you can. And I was like, that's such classic Pat Summerall. Moss, touchdown. Throw it as far as you can. Like didn't have to scream it and have his eyes bleed as he was broadcasting it. It was just perfect.
Amazing that you don't actually have to spit at me when you're broadcasting football games and you can just sort of say it because there's a microphone that should help you.
Right.
People, we will hear you. Yeah. Moss, Thanksgiving, legendary stuff. O.J. Simpson at the time in 75, I think it was, set the single game rushing record in Detroit on Thanksgiving, and in classic Bills 70s Bills fashion, they lost by 13 points. You're supposed to win when you rush for 275 yards, right? Or not lose by double digits to the Lions.
Right.
But they managed to do that.
Yeah, there was also there was a Bills game when I was growing up where the Lions were not that good and they just like trounced the Bills, and I was like so excited that the Bills were on TV on Thanksgiving, and then they just got killed somehow.
94.
There's been that's the one.
Dave Craig.
Yep, they ran a flea flicker or something, I remember, for a long touchdown. Yeah, so I don't know. Memories are made and will be again. But Randy Moss, I think that's the best single performance. And he had 3 catches, but he went for touchdown. Right? He had 3 catches. Yeah, I think 3 catches on like 4 targets. And I mean, that's how crazy.
That's so good.
That is how crazy that game was. This one of them being just like a screen pass, and he puts one move on, and then he's just gone. It's like, how is this even possible for someone to move this way? So, and then I loved all of it, even when it was like the play when I want to play and all that sort of stuff. I enjoyed all the flair, but him like yelling at the camera is as great as any of the other highlights. Like, it's just like, this is Moss, man. So, very cool. And we'll see what happens this time around, but I am thankful for you doing this every week with me. And then also obviously for everybody who has listened to this show and enjoyed it. So thank you to all of you folks. Thank you, Mike. And we will see you next week.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.